You're listening to XVGM Radio. Welcome to XVGM Radio, where the bits keep coming. I'm Justin.
And I'm Mike.
And this is episode 18, Beat 'em Ups.
Beat 'em Ups, my favorite, or one of my favorite genres of video games.
Yeah, I grew up playing a bunch of them. I don't play that many these days, but it was definitely a staple, and still sort of is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in arcades, on consoles, you name it, it was available and ready to play in the late 80s and early 90s.
Yes.
So I am super excited, as I know you are, to unveil some really amazing tracks that we've picked. We came in with a kind of somber track.
Yeah.
Kind of sad, but kind of hopeful. And that was Streets of Rage on the Sega Genesis, which came out in 1991. And that was the title theme by Yuzo Koshiro, one of the greats.
Yes.
Yuzo. Yes. So what do you think about this one?
So this one was, like you said, it's sort of somber. I like how low-key it felt. A lot of these other tracks that you're going to hear are a bit more high energy.
True.
I think we have a couple in here that are sort of low-key like this.
Yeah.
But generally, when you're playing a beat 'em up, you're in the game, you're beating people up, and it's a high energy game with high energy music.
Yeah.
But obviously, like, this is the title theme, so it doesn't necessarily have to follow that. I know the rest of the tracks in Streets of Rage are a lot more high energy.
Oh, sure.
Other than, like, the credits.
Yeah. Well, it's all New Jack Swing meets,
yeah.
like, house music, techno. A lot of the inspiration that Yuzo Koshiro got for this soundtrack and for a lot of his soundtracks was mostly, like, stuff like this, like house music, acid jazz, trance, techno, industrial, like a lot of different types of electronic music that he kind of took inspiration from.
It's good stuff.
Stuff that was all on MTV. That was his big inspiration. Was he would watch like MTV, or he would import in like CDs from like popular artists in the US and in the UK.
Europe,
yeah. So, but Streets of Rage, I don't have any real nostalgia for it because I didn't play it until I was in like college. So honestly, because that was when I got my first Genesis. So back in the early 2000s. But this was definitely one of the first games that I picked up was the Streets of Rage games.
Yeah. I have some memories of playing this at a friend's house, and it was probably one of the first beat 'em ups that I really had a lot of experience with. I would say the first is probably Double Dragon.
Okay.
It was one of the first ones that I had played because I wasn't really into beat 'em ups that much as a kid. No, I mean, when I was a kid, I played the classic beat 'em ups like The Simpsons and stuff like that. But most of the things that I was playing at the arcades were like the motorcycle driving game or the car driving game, stuff like that. Because I was a kid and I wanted to drive. I wanted to do adult things, and I mean, beating people up, I guess, is an adult thing.
I wanted to do adult things like blow stuff up.
Yeah.
So the characters in this game you play as, you have 3 playable characters: Axel Stone, Blaze Fielding, and Adam Hunter. Axel Stone kind of like, they're all, I believe, police officers. What's interesting is The intro theme that we heard in this game is also kind of like redone in Streets of Rage 2.
Oh, yeah.
So it's very, very, very similar. It's a little bit more intricate. There's a lot more, I think, going on in the background in that version. But I really, really enjoy the first Streets of Rage game. I think it's a little bit more basic when it's compared to the second game.
Oh, yeah.
But I really think that it's a great foundation for what they would eventually build up to with stuff like Streets of Rage 2, Streets of Rage 3. And we also have, coming up very soon, Streets of Rage 4, which was announced, which is going to be fantastic.
I did not know about that.
No? We'll have to toss a trailer up in the Facebook group. Yeah, Streets of Rage 4 was announced not too long ago. So it's made by a development company called .emu, and they have done a ton of games like Ys Origin, Wonder Boy: The Dragon's Trap. They are working on Windjammers 2. They ported Windjammers. And they ported a bunch of stuff like King of Fighters 2002, King of the Monsters. But yeah, they're doing Streets of Rage 4, which is going to star like an slightly older Axel and Blaze.
Oh, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's going to be really awesome. I've heard rumors that Yuzo Koshiro is doing the soundtrack.
Ooh.
Possibly. I mean, like, anything that I've ever seen, because when it got announced, everyone jumped at Yuzo, was like, please say you're doing the soundtrack. And he was like, I can't really talk about it, guys. Sorry. So I thought initially I saw him say, like, I don't have anything to say at this time. And then I think like afterwards he got asked again, or maybe 4,000 more times, and he was like, I can't talk about it. So there's a good chance that they're in talks with him to at least produce maybe half of the tracks or maybe one of the tracks. That'd be cool.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. I would definitely want to check that out.
Yeah, I mean, there's so few game series that are like linked with certain composers. Like, when you think, like, for example, Final Fantasy, you think Nobuo Uematsu. Yeah. When you think, like, Mario, you think, like, Koji Kondo, or Zelda, Koji Kondo. Yeah. Same thing with Daisuke Ishiwatari with Guilty Gear. Like, you have certain affiliations with composers and series, and Streets of Rage 4, I can't picture them not including Yuzo Koshiro in some way or shape or form.
I mean, if they're not doing at least one of the tracks.
Yeah, like even the intro track,
Yeah. There's just, I feel that that's not right.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, pay the man, Sega. Do it. Anyways, so what constitutes a beat 'em up? Well, the first beat 'em up was IRM's Kung Fu Master, which was developed in 1984.
Yep, and that was followed up by Technos Japan's Renegade, which came out in 1986. That introduced a more urban setting that the genre was known to implement pretty much almost always going forward.
That's true, and after that, Technos made Double Dragon in 1987, and Capcom created Final Fight in 1989. Streets of Rage followed in 1991, and these games, along with titles like River City Ransom, were the biggest inspirations for the genre.
So later games would actually implement more RPG elements at times. Games like River City Ransom, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, Dragon's Crown, stuff like that.
Right, and Golden Axe was more of a hack and slash style beat 'em up, and that kind of paved the way for titles like Dynasty Warriors,
right,
and more like the hack and slash genre, which I always considered like a subgenre of beat 'em ups.
I can see that.
Yeah. So let's kick it into our next game, since we've kind of identified what a beat 'em up is, and we've also kind of shared one of the best, which is Streets of Rage. This is going to be Justin's pick. What do you got for us?
So we're going to listen to a track from Batman Returns, which came out in the SNES in 1992. The track is called Prologue, and it was composed by Jun Funahashi, Harumi Ueko, and Kazuhiko Urehara.
And this one's a little bit of a slow build as well.
Yes.
Let's listen.
Welcome back. That was our first track of the night, Prologue from Batman Returns on the SNES in 1992. It was composed by Jun Funahashi, Harumi Ueko, and Kazuhiko Urehara, with the original movie soundtrack being done by Danny Elfman.
Yeah, you can't forget that. I mean,
you can't mistake that soundtrack or that Batman music.
Absolutely. This one, I don't know, it definitely builds up to that more familiar, like Batman, like da 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 da.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it takes you through this journey throughout the prologue, which if you watch the video footage or if you've played the game,
yeah,
you kind of see, you know, the backstory of the penguin.
Yeah, that's the creepy baby crying noises, or depending on where your brain went, it might have just been like a squeaky door or a squeaky wheel. Is, you know, the crying baby version of the penguin, telling the story about when he was born and how his parents, you know, didn't care for him, so they threw him in the river, and et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Yeah, so I really dig more towards the end of the second half of the track after it kind of ramps up into the Batman. You get a lot of really instrumentation here. You get these like organs and these more like the drums are really like very sharp.
Yes,
and
pronounced.
Like great like drum fills, drum rolls that are going in there, almost like a marching band kind of thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then more towards the very end, right before it ends, you get these really cool organs and these really cool, like very different sounding, more in the line of something from like Super Castlevania 4, as far as those like really rich sounding like organs and keys. So
yeah. I thought you were going to talk about the flutes that were in there, like the piccolos and flutes.
Oh yeah, like
that they add to it.
Yeah.
I really like what they added as well.
Yeah. I mean, Konami was really fantastic when it came to like their instrumentation.
Oh yeah, and on the SNES. Well, I mean, this was also on the Genesis and some other stuff.
Yeah, it was on the NES as well. Totally different soundtrack and totally different game.
Yes.
This game though, I always thought it was the best on Super NES as far as like that classic like beat 'em ups feel, but I could not get past like Catwoman.
Oh really?
Yeah, like whenever I would play this, I can get past like maybe the first, I think maybe 2 levels.
Yep.
And then when I get to that rooftop where you have to fight Catwoman, I always lose.
I think the trick was to hit her with your grappling gun at certain points.
Oh really?
I think when she's jumping, you can hit her with a grappling gun. I enjoyed the heck out of this game as a kid. Yeah. I always couldn't help but laugh at the skull clowns and the motorcycles, because the skull heads were so huge.
Yeah.
It's just funny to watch these things riding around on motorcycles that are mostly head. Or skull, rather.
I really enjoyed throwing enemies at the background.
Yes.
That was one of my favorite. That and like slamming them down on the ground, because Konami always had like these really amazing sound effects, and they did a really good job making like crunch noises when they like smashed the guys into the ground, or when you would like grab 2 guys that were on either side and like smash them together.
Yes.
Oh, it was so satisfying.
This was a lot of fun. My favorite thing was actually not just throwing them at the back wall, but throwing them at the back wall when there was glass involved.
Yeah.
Because they smashed the glass.
Yes.
I thought that was so awesome.
A lot of really cool touches with this game.
Yes.
I think they really did a good job with it.
If you haven't played this, I recommend either picking it up, because I found it in like our retro game stores a couple times, or just grab it on an emulator, whatever you want to do. Like, if you like beat 'em ups, give this a game a try. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Good challenge, really good challenge. With this prologue, I also wanted to say that it does a really good job of like rising and falling action.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Because it builds a couple of times.
Yeah. I mean, just like a Danny Elfman track,
Right.
Yeah. I wonder. So, what about the composers? Tell me about them.
So there's a couple of these guys.
Aside from Danny Elfman, of course.
Right. So Danny Elfman isn't actually credited on the game, as far as I can tell. It's been a long time since I've beaten it, and Moby Games, where we get a lot of our data from, doesn't list him. So he was not credited, but should have been.
Yeah.
So starting off with Jun Funahashi. Jun Funahashi started out with a game called Crackout in 1986 doing sound, and then moved up to music and sound with the Adventures of Billy Bayou in 1988. That sounds really familiar. I think we've talked about that before.
Sounds almost like Adventures of Bayou Billy. Adventures of Billy Bayou?
I'm sorry. The Adventures of Bayou Billy in 1988. You're absolutely
of Billy Bayou. Man, that sounds really familiar.
I'm surprised you didn't just catch that and be like, no, it's this.
Oh, no, I had to think about it for a second. I was like, I've never heard of that, but that sounds familiar.
Bouncing around Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse, 1989. Lethal Enforcers in 1994. Jurassic Park 3, The DNA Factor in 2001, they did sound director on. And then more recently, the last thing we have here is Stranglehold in 2007. They were additional audio support.
Right.
Harumi Ueko. They started out doing sound creation on Gyrus in 1988, and it looks like they stuck around with Konami as well. I see Gradius 3 in 1990. They did sound editor. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time in 1992. As well as Tournament Fighters in 1993, Lethal Enforcers as well in 1994. Moving up, Gradius 4, Fukatsu 1999, Jurassic Park 3 in 2001, and the last credit we have is Beatmania IIDX15, DJ Troopers in 2008.
And keep in mind, we're kind of bouncing around here. We're not listing every single game they've done. With tons of Konami stuff. Basically.
Yeah, well, exactly. There's 3 people, and all 3 of them have done a lot with Konami, so to read off their entire catalog would be most of this podcast.
Yeah.
So finally, we have Kazuhiko Urehara. This is someone that I know we've talked on the show about before. Yes. Vampire Killer in 1986, did sound effects. Musical arrangement in Snatcher in 1988. Music and sound in Tiny Toon Adventures. Buster Bust Loose in 1992. Oops, I've talked about that before. And a lot.
Oops, looks like you busted loose.
Again. And the rest of these are all sound producer credits. Ganbare Goemon 3, Shishi Juro Kube no Karakuri Manjigatame.
Oh my.
Yes. We all know and love that game. Goemon's Great Adventure in 1988. A bunch of ESPN games in the early 2000s.
Right.
Followed up finally by International Superstar Soccer 3 in 2003. They were lead sound producer.
Yeah, they did a bunch of those International Superstar Soccer games. So.
Yeah. 1998.
Yeah.
96.
Well, we're moving in from a game that is based on a franchise to a game which is based more on, I don't know, like Chinese lore. This is a game that came out exclusively for the Mega Drive in 1996. I've also heard 1999, but there's different credits depending on where you look. But we're going to go with 1996 since that was closer to the Genesis life cycle. Water Margin is the official translation of the game. It's called Water Margin, The Tales of Clouds and Winds. And the official title is Shui Hu Feng Yung Zhuang, which I probably butchered, so I apologize to all my Chinese listeners. This is Stage 6, and it's by Hanmin Liao. you are back to XVGM Radio, and that was Water Margin, The Tales of Clouds and Winds, also known as Shui Hu Feng Yung Zung. Zhuan,
I think.
Zhuan?
Yeah.
Zhuan. Sorry.
No,
I'm terrible. I'm much better at pronouncing Japanese stuff than Chinese stuff. But
yeah, same. I recognize that ZHU
Yeah.
is
Zhuan.
usually a Zhu.
that was a Mega Drive exclusive that came out in 1996, and this was Stage 6, and it was by Hanmin Liao. So Water Margin is an interesting game. It was fairly recently released in North America and pretty much worldwide by a company called Pico Interactive. And it is a beat 'em up that came out only in I think Chinese or Korean region, and remained exclusive to the Mega Drive.
So it was exclusively an Asian release.
Yeah, pretty much, but not a Japanese release.
Right.
To clarify.
Right.
So it's an unlicensed game. It borrows heavily from a bunch of different games. When you start the game and you start playing it, immediately you'll notice one thing, and that the first stage looks almost exactly like Knights of the Round, which is a Capcom beat 'em up.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the summon.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes heavy inspiration from Knights of the Round, takes heavy inspiration from a couple other games. The sound driver is actually, it's believed to be from the Data East game High Seas Havoc.
Yeah.
So when you're listening to this track and you're like, this kind of sounds like something that Data East would put out, it's because they used the sound driver from High Seas Havoc. So.
Yeah, actually, my first thoughts upon hearing this song were that it was from a shoot-'em-up game.
Okay.
It reminds me. I don't know if it's just something
Very high energy.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's that there's something that I've heard that sounds similar, or what it is, or maybe it's just that there was a few shoot-'em-ups that we played on the Genesis that had sort of similar sounds.
Yeah, that's a possibility. But yeah, very high energy, galloping bass.
Yep.
Love it. I really like the melody as well. It's very uplifting and very I really dig the part that's like ba-na-na-na-na-na-na, and then you get the background da-na-na, kind of flourishes that kind of it's like a call and answer kind of thing. A little bit.
Yeah, that's more of the uplifting type. That part that you were talking about.
Yeah. So I think this game is pretty fun. I've only briefly played it. I want to pick it up, but it's like a $40-$50 game to grab from Pico. So I mean, they don't really go on sale that often. Pico's like an independent developer or publisher, and what they do is they grab unreleased games and they basically release them. They buy the rights to them and then they release them. They convert them so into cartridge format that would be playable here in the States and everything.
I was gonna say, are they like a repro manufacturer? But it doesn't sound like it. If they're buying the license and going through all this other stuff, they're not. I mean, it's kind of a reproduction, but it's not.
It's
like
not
what
a
call it a repro.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a reproduction just because it's a company that's buying or getting the rights. Like recently, for example, they did a Kickstarter for 40 Winks, which never came out on the N64, I think. I think it came out on the PS1, but not on the N64. I can't remember which one it didn't come out on, but they're releasing it for that system. So they bought the rights to the game and they're, making carts for it and they're putting the game on. I think I'm almost positive it's the N64 version.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that is Pico. But Hanmin Liao, I believe that's his name. The only credit that I could find for him was Magic Girl featuring Ling Ling the Little Witch, which came out in 2015. So that is all I could find on that.
Sounds like a game we should do an entire episode on.
Yes. The game was initially developed by a company called Never Ending Soft Team. I believe you had a joke during the break.
Oh, you mean the Never Ending Soft Team?
Never Ending Soft Team. That's going to be stuck in your head.
Yeah, no, it already is. Yeah. Although the Homester Runner version is stuck in my head. It's the Never Ending Soda.
Yeah, Never Ending Soda. I'd be okay with that. So let's move on to our next track. What do you got for us?
So I'm going to fill your ear holes with Alien vs. Predator, a game that came out not in the arcades but on the SNES in 1993. This is the Activision SNES beat 'em up, not the Capcom arcade beat 'em up.
Right.
The track is called City, and it was composed by Tenpei Sato and Hisayoshi Ogura. thank you for tuning in. That was Alien vs. Predator, a game that came out on the SNES in 1993. The track was called City, and it was composed by Tenpei Sato and Hisayoshi Ogura.
AVP.
AVP forever. Five ever.
There's been so many Alien vs. Predator games.
Yes, there have.
And
not all of them that good.
No. Well,
so the FPS games, some of the more modern Alien vs. Predator games, I'm not a big fan of.
From what I've heard, the Jaguar game is like the best Jaguar game, honestly. But Alien vs. Predator, I always thought that this was a port back in the day. I thought it was a port of the arcade game like you were talking about before, but it's not. That game was developed by
Capcom.
Yes, by Capcom. That was the arcade game. This game is published by Activision.
Right. It was developed by Jorudan.
Yes.
Exclusively for the Super Nintendo.
That's right. And, you know, I remember playing this game because we talked about this on when you guest starred on PTR, on Pixel Tunes, my former podcast, and we played a track off of this game. And beforehand, we had sat down and we played the game, and I was pretty impressed by it. Honestly, I was like, I don't know why people say this game is not good. It's a pretty fun game.
Yeah, I only just recently saw some reviews where people were, you know, I wouldn't say trashing the game, but they didn't speak too highly of it. And I was just like, this is one of the few games as a kid that I could actually beat. Like, I played it so much, like Radius 3, I played it so much that I eventually got to the end and actually beat the game. And as a kid, that's a thing that was just like, it didn't happen a whole lot with me. Like, I didn't beat many games.
Right.
So I have a little bit of nostalgia for it, but when we played it like a year ago,
I still don't own it. I meant to pick it up, and I still want to pick it up.
Okay.
But
yeah.
I think what happened was you brought it over, and we started playing it, and I was like, yo, this game is pretty fun.
Yeah. That's just what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Like, both of us agreed, like, it was a fun game.
Mm-hmm.
The premise is very simple. I mean, you're a predator. It's in one of the years of the Alien movies with Ripley and whatnot.
Right.
You go to the human colony Vega 4, and they are, you know, experiencing an alien problem.
Mm-hmm.
There's aliens popping up from the streets and the sewers and everything else, and you go through and you just, you know, kill aliens and eventually follow them back to the alien queen at the heart of a hive, and then you fight her and you kill her.
You know, for as many times as you kill the queen, there's supposedly multiple queens out there. You know,
in the Alien universe, there has to be, considering.
Yeah. So it's like, who's the lead queen?
Who's the queen of queens?
Who's the queen bee?
Or perhaps there's a king of queens.
Ugh. Yeah, no, pretty fun game. I love this track. Yes. It is fantastic.
This is one of the first tracks in the game. It's not the intro, but this is the first level of the game.
Okay.
The city.
Okay. Yeah, there's so much going on, and it's got these crazy rolls. Like with the like
the bass.
Yeah, it's nuts. There's just so much going on in this track, and a lot of time signature changes, and it's a very progressive kind of track. It's really cool.
Yeah, no, there are two things that strike me about this track. One is that I can't listen to this track without automatically hearing the sound of hitting and killing the aliens in my head. Like, as we're going through, like, I'm hearing the music, and then I'm also hearing the aliens dying as I'm beating them up. And then I apparently have never listened to this with headphones or something, because I said this during the break. I was surprised at like how stereo it was. Like, there were different things going on in each ear. And it was actually a little bit distracting, because in the left ear only, there's I think it's like a cymbal hit or something, but it's like a ticking that keeps going. And it's not super distracting, like I can't enjoy the song, but I had never heard it in that context before. And then for the rest of the song, all I can hear is in my left ear this chick chick.
Yeah, and it's important to note that if you're listening with headphones on, you hear like this rolling going from like the left ear to the right ear and back and forth. And I thought that was a really cool touch. It's always nice when you get to hear like stereo tracks like this, because the Super Nintendo did support stereo, like by default. So
and that's one of the things. Like, I was surprised, and then I was like, why am I surprised? the SNES does stereo.
Right.
I'd never heard it. I guess I probably always played this on a small CRT,
little baby CRT,
that had like the mono speakers. So I never really got the stereo sound out of it, and that was really cool.
Yeah, definitely. So tell me about these composers for this one.
So, Tenpei Sato, who I know that we have talked about before. I am a fan of most of the things that he's done that I've heard. So, starting off with music composed on XZR in 1988. He moved all around and did so much great music. He did arrangement on a game called Glean in 1991.
God bless you.
Fiend Hunter in 1993. He did casting produce, so I guess there was vegetables in that.
Oh, man.
I'm full of them tonight. A game that we've talked about previously, Rhapsody, a musical adventure in 1998.
Talked about that on the PlayStation episode.
Yes, good game. And again, La Puchelle Tactics in 2002. Phantom Brave 2004.
A lot of Atlas stuff and NIS stuff.
I was going to say, it looks like he moved on from Activision to Atlas. Mugen Souls in 2013, and the last game in 2016, Mayq Labyrinth of Death.
Cool.
He did the opening theme.
Gotcha.
And then we have Hisayoshi Ogura, started in 1985 doing music composition on a game called The Legend of, depending on who you are, Kage or Kage.
Kage, yeah.
In 1985. Did sound designer on Arkanoid, Revenge of DOH in 1987.
You mean Revenge of Doe?
Doe! Revenge of Homer Simpson. Did music composition in 1988 on The Ninja Warriors.
Yes, Daddy Mulk.
Yes.
Sagaya
in 1989.
Which is a sequel to Darius 2.
Oh, Darius Plus,
yeah.
Really?
Sagaya, I believe, is the sequel. It came out on a bunch of different stuff, but Hiko Mizutani did the soundtrack on the Master System version. Yeah.
Very cool. Bumping around, did music editing on Body Densetsu, sound director on Gun Frontier in 1991, sound director on Darius Gaiden in 1994, and finally, the last credit we have is music composing on Darius Burst in 2009.
Yeah, he is part of Zuntata, the Taito band, so he's done tons and tons of really amazing stuff. Rastan Saga 2 and Night Striker in 1993, which has a cool jazz fusion soundtrack. So,
ooh, nice.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, it looks like we are getting a call on the Patreon hotline, according to our producer Janine. So let's go ahead and take a listen. Caller, you are on the air.
Yo, this is Carlos, aka Kung Fu Carlito, and it would be radical if you could play me Mechanical Walkin' from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3: The Manhattan Project. Nothing gets me pumped to take down the Technodrome like some sweet Konami tunes. Thanks.
All right, well, that's certainly something we can do. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3: The Manhattan Project on the NES, which came out in 1991. The track that Kung Fu Carlito wants to hear is Mechanical Walkin', also known as Scene 6 Technodrome, and trust me, it has nothing to do with Christopher Walken. The track was Kozo Nakamura, Tomoya Tomita, and Yuichi Sakakura were the composers on this one.
Welcome back. That was our Patreon pick from Kung Fu Carlito. It was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, The Manhattan Project, came out in the NES in 1991, and the track was called Mechanical Walkin', also known as Scene 6 Technodrome, and it was composed by Kozo Nakamura, Tomoya Tomita, and Yuichi Sakakura.
And it has nothing to do with Christopher Walken.
Correct.
Or does it? Bum, bum, bum. So, you know what I really like about this track is it doesn't sound... It sounds like Turtles, but it doesn't sound like Turtles.
Yeah, like
you know
it doesn't
what I mean?
have, like a lot of the other Turtle tracks from the other games have sort of that Turtles theme built into
Right.
built into it, and this one does not.
No, and that's what I like about it. It's a outstanding Konami track that's just brutally Konami. I mean, it just sounds Konami, and it's so good. It's so very good. I love their drums. Their drums are just so tight and so crisp and fresh. It's like biting into like a really good stick of celery.
All right.
Yeah.
Continuing the produce jokes, I see.
Well, I'm drinking some V8 right now. So,
yes, that would do it.
That's where it's oozing from.
No, I agree though. The drums are really cool. Although I'd say what grabbed my attention more was the bass on this.
Okay.
And I mean, looking back at my history, I feel like I'm grabbed by the bass a lot. But
gross.
Yeah. But this one, it didn't quite hit the the Sunsoft Dat bass, that Sunsoft bass level of things, but it was very vibrant. No, vibrant's the wrong word. There was a vibration in the bass sound that I found very pleasing. Like it didn't hit, like I said, that Sunsoft bass levels of bassiness, but it was there, and it was
has
groovy.
A resonance.
Yeah, that's a good word for it.
That's probably a good word for it.
Yes.
Yeah. It's got that like it's fat. It's fat sounding.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a fat bass line.
It is. Super fat.
Yeah. It's good stuff. I've never heard this song in the game because I've never gotten this far in it. I've gotten pretty far in the game, maybe like level 3 or 4, but just I don't know. I think I got up to...
I thought you'd beaten this one.
No, this one I have never beaten.
No, I'm thinking the Genesis one.
Yeah, Hyperstone Heist is
That's
great.
the one.
I love me some Hyperstone Heist. There's certain tracks on Hyperstone Heist that to me sound better than Turtles in Time. Okay. But yeah, I mean, growing up, I loved the Turtles beat 'em ups. Starting with the arcade game and the port of the arcade game TMNT 2.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, I agree. That was another one of the arcade games. The Simpsons, Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah, no, those were big. Those were a lot of fun, especially because they're characters that I knew. So that was another big draw to those.
Yeah, definitely. But this one I never picked up when I was a kid. It was always one of those ones that I always wanted at Funkoland, but it was always like too expensive for me to buy.
Yeah,
because it was kind of semi-rare. I mean, this is right around the time when like a lot of people were kind of not really getting out of Turtles, but like Turtles had kind of like I would say like maybe 92, 93. This game came out in 91. So this was like right in the height of popularity for Turtles fandom, and then I'd say probably like shortly after like Hyperstone Heist came out, like right around Tournament Fighters, people weren't really as into Turtles that I like when I was growing up.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I do remember watching and enjoying Turtles a lot. I don't actually remember when this game came out. Like, I got the first game because it was Turtles, and then I didn't really like it all that much. And then I got the second game because I saw that it was a port of the arcade game, and I enjoyed the arcade game. And then I just missed this one. I don't remember, exactly what I was doing in 1991, but I
probably hanging out, wearing neon.
Yeah, probably. No, I feel like the neon came a little later.
Nah,
but I don't know.
You were wearing neon, trust me.
I mean, you're probably not wrong. But this one, like I said, I don't know why I missed it, because when the SNES game came out, I did not miss that.
Right.
Like that.
Oh, of course.
Turtles in Time. Right?
Yeah, those Turtles in Time. Yeah. No. All right. So Kozo Nakamura worked on Biomiracle Bokute Upa in 1988, which we talked about last episode. He also worked on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game in 1990. He did the music design on that. I believe Jun Funahashi did the actual music composition on the original NES Turtles game. I did a game called Gradius 3, which I think Justin's a fan of.
Never heard of it.
But that was the arcade version. He was the sound editor on it.
Right.
Monster in My Pocket in 92, Lone Ranger in 91, Zen Intergalactic Ninja in 93, Rakuga Kids on the N64 in 1998, and bouncing around, he did Castlevania Legacy of Darkness in 1999, did sound effects on that. His last game was Konami Crazy Racers in 2001, where he's credited as voice.
Tomoya Tomita has an interesting little credits list here. Started off with music composition on SD Snatcher in 1990. And then looks like they did some stuff for Konami. I have Proteus.
Mostly Konami.
Yeah. Proteus in 1990, Metal Gear 2, Solid Snake in 1990, Poppin' Twin B in 1993. A lot of these are sound design or sound director, actually. Mystical Ninja starring Goemon in 1997.
That's the N64 game. Yeah.
Yep. A bunch of Goemon and Ganbare Goemon games. Castlevania Legacy of Darkness in 1999. Castlevania 1999.
Right.
Some Dance Dance Revolution, Disney Dancing Museum in 2000, and let's see, sound producer on Castlevania Circle of the Moon, good game, and then Jump Ship to Nintendo.
Yeah.
With Wario Land Shake It in 2008. They did
great
music.
soundtrack and great game.
Yes, I think we talked about that at one point.
Yeah.
There was a Wario episode.
Yeah.
Kirby's Epic Yarn 2010, and finally Yoshi's Woolly World in 2015.
Yeah.
That was a cute game.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And then we have Yuichi Sakakura. Slightly smaller resume. Started with Gyrus in 1988. Did sound creation on that.
Gyrus? Let's call the whole thing off.
You're ramping it up. Super Contra in 1990, Ganbare Goemon Gaiden 2, Tenka no Zaiho in 1992, Crypt Killer in 1995, and finally in 2004, Beatmania IIDX 7th Style.
All right, so let's move on to Sega.
Sega!
We're going to be talking about a game that came out exclusively for the Xbox in 2005. This game is called Spike Out Battle Street, and the track is Crying Out Loud, Diesel Town 2. It's by Shinji Hosei and Ayako Saso.
To XVGM Radio, where the bits just keep coming.
Welcome back to XVGM Radio. That was Spike Out Battle Street on Xbox, and that came out in 2005. That was the track Crying Out Loud, Diesel Town 2, and that was by Shinji Hosei and Ayako Saso. Wow, what a track.
Yeah.
Phenomenal stuff. I love this track.
I feel like you might have put something in my drink. That was a trip.
That was a trip. I absolutely love two parts of this. Well, three parts. Well, okay, I love the whole track. But I love the bass line. The funky bass.
The bass is very funky.
Yes. Love that. And I absolutely love when the guitars come in too. It's very 70s, kind of like funk era. But then you got that saxophone stab. that
keeps echoing.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Love it. So good. I love this type of music. This was like my jam back in like the 2000s, like early 2000s, mid 2000s, where like I was really into like funk and electro and anything like in that genre of music. So I love the backbeat, the almost like breakbeat kind of style.
Yeah, no, the beat is really cool. This track comes really close to a genre that I'm not a fan of, although it doesn't cross the line into the territory that like I don't like the track.
Okay.
But it is very close to like free jazz.
Okay.
And
is it because of that saxophone you mean? Or?
No, it's not just so free jazz is a very interesting form of jazz where there are no rules.
There's no structure.
Yeah, there's no structure. There's no time signature. You just everybody plays what they want, and at the end you call it a song.
Okay.
And some people will probably argue with me, and I recognize that it is a valid form of music, but I don't like it at all.
Oh, I love that kind of stuff.
I mean, like I said, this didn't cross that line.
Sure.
The echoing on the on the saxophone was a little weird and almost off-putting, but because there was like that breakbeat, and because things did actually follow the beat, it felt structured enough that I could enjoy it. But it was definitely trippy, like I said. The echoing instruments and just sort of the like that breakbeat is really like I like it, but it also adds to sort of like disjointedness. Of how this feels.
It's almost like avant-garde jazz.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
That's what I was going to say.
Avant-garde.
Yeah. Stuff like some of the later like John Coltrane stuff where he was like completely hopped up on whatever he was putting into his body at that time.
The wacky tobacco.
Probably way more than that. You know, I respect that in the sense that even though there's no structure to it, there's still a lot of like tight musicianship that kind of falls behind it. But I agree with you. This isn't quite free jazz.
Right.
It's definitely a lot more like electronic elements. And if you listen to some of the other soundtracks that these composers have done, Shinji Hosei and Ayako Saso worked on a few games together.
Oh.
One of the games that they worked on together is Prismatic Solid, which is it was originally an Xbox 360 indie title. Yeah. I'm glad that they got it off of Xbox 360 indie because the indie channel like closed down.
Oh.
Like you can't download any indie games off of the Xbox 360 like live indie. Like it's been shut down for years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was just a shame because there's a bunch of games that are on there that are actually good. There's a lot of garbage that was on there, but there was actually some really, really good games that were on there. And they did a game called Prismatic Solid, which ended up on the PS4.
Yeah.
And it's like
I feel like I know
game.
that the name.
It's very Rez-ish in terms of the visuals, but it's like a bullet hell shooter, but it's all like super, super trippy electronic music. Shinji Hosei specifically started out in 1987 with Quester, followed it up with Dragon Spirit in the same year, and later on did the sequel to Dragon Spirit. He did sound on Dragon Saber. Then later on jumped on to be a music recording engineer for the Tekken series, Tekken 1, Tekken 2, did Street Fighter EX2 Plus in 1999 as a sound creator. Just kind of jumping around here, Gungrave in 2002 was the sound director on a PS2 game. Did the sound on Mega Man Network Transmission in 2003, which has a really cool soundtrack on the GameCube. Yeah. Later on did a bunch of Beatmania games and Ridge Racer 7 in 2006. Let's go to their last game, which is Pokemon Quest in 2018. Did the sound on that. Was also involved in the Zero Escape series. So Zero Escape, the Nonary games, Zero Time Dilemma, etc., etc. Ayako Saso did her first game, Rolling Thunder 2, in 1991, and did music composition on that. Jumped around to a bunch of other Namco-based games like Ridge Racer in 94 and Ridge Racer Revolution in 1995. Did Xevious 3DG in 1996. Did work on Tekken 2, so basically the background music for that, and Street Fighter EX2 Plus. So again, working very tightly with Shinji Hosei on that. Gungrave, Mega Man Network Transmission. As you can see, these two work pretty much hand in hand. Was the free-roaming sound designer on Xenosaga Episode 2. And then again, started doing Beatmania stuff with Shinji Hosei, and then ended up continuing to do work for Sega as part of Super Sweep for the game Let's Tap in 2008, which was Yuji Naka's Wii exclusive game, I believe. Though I believe it may have gotten an iPhone port recently. Then 3D Dot Game Heroes 2009, they did sound. Again, jumping around here. Final game that they worked on composition was Ridge Racer Unbounded in 2012. So yeah, regarding this game, Spike Out Battle Street, it's the 4th game in the Spike Out series that was developed by Dimps, published by Sega.
Right.
And this is the first home console version of a Spike Out game. From what I understand, you could play as up to like, I think it's 14 different characters for the beat 'em up. I don't know if they're like unlockable, or I know you start off as this one main character, as this guy, and then you play a little bit as him. I've only seen gameplay footage of this. Honestly, I really want to get this game just for the soundtrack, but I watched a little bit of the gameplay footage. One thing that's really funny is when you get to like a barricade or a wall, they're like, break the gate or whatever, and then you gotta like bust through the gate. So it has kind of like a House of the Dead feel a little bit, in the sense that it almost feels like, yeah, you're walking around, you're running around in this 3D environment, and you're doing all this, you know, beating dudes up or whatever. But the camera movement, like as you bust through the gates, then it starts to move on its own, the camera, to the next area, and then you follow the character.
So it's almost like it's on rails.
Almost like, well, I would say the camera itself is on rails, just in between, like getting from one section to another.
Right, in the transitional scenes or something.
Yeah. But like it has a real like House of the Dead framework as far as when that's happening. So
that's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, the game looks really cool. Honestly, it's an Xbox exclusive. Like for the original Xbox, it's not backwards compatible on the 360 or the Xbox One. So like I really just want to get an Xbox just to play it. There's a couple other games I really want that are Xbox exclusive, but I kind of want to get an Xbox now. Yeah, that's how good this song is.
Where are you going to put it?
I don't know, man. The thing's so giant. I don't even think I have room for it.
I was going to say, staple it to your ceiling.
Yeah, there we go. I don't think that'll work. All right, what do you got for us? What's coming up?
All right, so now I want to play for you another...
Let me play for you.
Yes, this one is a little bit of a crazy track too. This is from God Hand that came out in the PS2 in 2006. The track is called Battery Size D, and it is by Masafumi Takada and Jun Fukuda. Welcome back to XVGM Radio. That was God Hand, which came out on the PS2 in 2006. The track was called Battery Size D, and it was composed by Masafumi Takada and Jun Fukuda.
So I was trying to figure out what the lyrics were, the vocals. So I wrote out what I think they're saying.
Let me hear it.
All right, so I think they're saying poop on the lawn, poop on the lawn. You know you have got to poop, poop, poop on the yarn. On the yarn.
On the yarn.
Because it sounds like they're saying yarn at the end, but you can't unhear it.
So the only time that my brain actually registered vocals,
Okay.
I couldn't tell you what they were saying, but there's like, it sounds like sort of an undistorted male voice.
Yeah.
But for the things that you're saying, it sounds like they're singing "Poop on the Lawn." My brain heard those things that you buy kids, those really annoying toys that it's like a stick and you turn it, it goes whoa, and then you turn the other way.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's what I heard. I didn't hear words.
Okay. No, I heard words.
I'm sure next time I listen to this track, I will hear "Poop on the Lawn."
Yeah. Oh man. So you recently experienced this game for the first time, right?
Yes.
Right.
It was fun but frustrating.
Yeah, you were having some troubles there. Even I was.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got farther than I did, but not very much.
Yeah, we started a new game. I've beaten this game. I picked this game up shortly after it came out, and this game got terrible reviews.
Yeah, no, it did not do well.
And the only reason why I ended up checking it out is because people on 4chan at the time, back in 2006, people were like raving about this game in the video game section. And they're like, IGN's out of their minds. They gave it a 3.0. Like, this game is phenomenal. And everybody was saying, pick this game up. It's developed by Clover and published by Capcom.
Which is you'd think, a decent combination.
Well, yeah. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to check this out. I'm going to go pick it up. It was $20. And I picked it up, and I've had this copy ever since. I've never sold it or gotten rid of it. And it's just, I fell in love with this game. It's so goofy. It's so fun.
Very goofy. I think that's probably why it didn't score so well.
So Shinji Mikami was the director. And what he wanted to do is he wanted to create a game that hardcore gamers could enjoy as a hardcore, like, beat 'em up, but also it would have a lot of, like, extra comic relief and, like, a lot of funny bits in it. But the whole point of the game is you're this guy named Gene, and he gets his arm lopped off, and he replaces it with this thing called the God Hand. And so he's basically, like, going after the people who chopped his arm off, basically. Right. Yeah. But the God Hand gives him all these crazy powers, and he can do all these awesome, like, Fist in the North Star style kind of moves.
Yeah, like combos or like super moves.
Yeah, or like stomp really like fast, like mafia kick kind of. You could do like capoeira, like martial arts type stuff where you do like, you know, flying kicks, and there's all a bunch of really crazy moves. There's like a ball buster move where you can like kick dudes in the balls, like that sort of thing. So it's kind of difficult to get used to the game's controls themselves because you use the right analog stick for like dodging, backflips, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's some of the big trouble that I had with it is I'm used to the right stick being your camera, and there is no like the camera basically follows behind you. So if you need to look over there, you need to turn around. And I kept forgetting that there was a button to quick 180.
To do a quick 180, right. Yeah. The game gets really tough really quick.
Yes.
Like within the first level, you are going to be replaying it. And what's difficult is there's not too many checkpoints throughout each level. So you will, if you're not good at the game, you will be repeating the same areas over and over again. So it's definitely one of those games where you should play it on easy initially just to like get the feel for it and then, you know, kind of go from there.
So the composers on this one, Masafumi Takada, started doing composition for a track called Tomorrow to Start in a game called Vanguard Bandits in 1998.
Yeah.
And then did Robotic Alchemic Drive in 2002. Score composition on Michigan Report from Hell in 2004.
Which has terrible English dialogue.
With the name like Michigan Report from Hell, I can only imagine.
It's super goofy.
Killer 7 in 2005. I remember that. Resident Evil: The Umbrella Chronicles in 2007. They were on the sound team. And finally, in 2017, Danganronpa version 3, Killing Harmony.
It's also worth noting that Jun Fukuda did a lot of soundtracks with Masafumi Takada.
Yes.
And it's also worth noting that a lot of the Grasshopper Studios stuff that Suda51 did, he also contributed to, like Lollipop Chainsaw, Shadow of the Damned, No More Heroes 2, No More Heroes 1, and then Earth Defense Force. That series is more with D3, with the publisher D3.
Right. Kind of like a free agent.
Yeah. Well, it looks like we're getting a call according to Janine, so let's go ahead and take it. Caller, you are on the air with XVGM Radio. What can we do for you? Uh-oh. That doesn't sound good.
No, it sounds like we're overhearing something.
Sounds like a car's being destroyed.
Yeah. Is this?
I think they meant to call 911.
Oh my god.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's not good.
His car does not.
Janine, can we forward that person to 911? Sounds like they need some help. Well, smashing cars reminds me of Final Fight, so we may as well play one of my favorite tracks of all time, Final Fight on the Super NES. This came out in 1990. Toilet Gang, and the stage is for Part 2. And this track was arranged by Toshio Kajino, but it was composed by either Harumi Fujita, Yasuaki Fujita, Manami Matsume, Yoshihiro Sakaguchi, Yoko Shimomura, Hiromitsu Takaoka, or Junko Tamiya. One of those, or all of those. We'll leave it up to you.
Hi there, I'm Marky Flounder, Metro City's toughest anti-vigilante lawyer. Are you a thug who was beaten to a pulp by Mayor Mike Hagar, or two-bit ruffians like Cody Travers, Dean, or Guy? Have you had your salami slammed or your curtains beefed by ninja babes like Maki, or rogue cops like Lucia? Is your name Bread, with the A missing? Well, good news is coming your way, because the Skullcross and Mad Gear gangs have joined forces with me to open up a class action lawsuit against these supposed good guys. We'll do our best to make sure that your medical bills are paid for and your emotional grievances dealt with in therapy.
I swear, Doc, it wasn't my fault that I tried to kill Cody with a switchblade. It was all because the man's holding me down. You know what I'm saying? I got, emotional baggage and whatnots.
Sound familiar? Call 1-800-FLOUNDER to get your name added to the lawsuit, and together we can... Oh wait, what's that? This lawsuit will never go through with the courts? Are you trying to say we're the bad guys in this? See, this is what I'm talking about here. First, I gotta deal with defamation of character for Poison and Roxy. Then I gotta deal with Andor's suit against some giant named Andre. This is just too much. I'm getting too old for this. I can't believe people tell me this so late in the game. Blah, blah, blah.
So good! That was Final Fight on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Came out in 1990. That track was Toilet Gang, Stage 4 Part 2. That was arranged by Toshio Kajino, and it was composed, most likely, by Harumi Fujita, Yasuaki Fujita, Manami Matsume, Yoshihiro Sakaguchi, Yoko Shimomura, Hiromitsu Takaoka, and Junko Tamiya. A lot of composers.
Yeah, I'll tell you where this track doesn't belong. In the toilet.
Oh, snap.
This is a good track. I like it.
That's right. I love God, I love this track. I don't care how many times I have to play this track on a podcast. I'm just going to play it.
Clearly.
Yeah. It's my favorite song in the Final Fight franchise. It's my favorite song on the first Final Fight. It's one of my favorite songs on the Super Nintendo, period. I love that bass line. Dun, dun, dun. It's so chunky and do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And for the people who dislike the Super NES soundtrack, what's wrong with you? I mean, I don't mean to call these people out, but those horns are fantastic. Like,
all of these sampled
it's just, the whole thing just is shimmery and shiny and bright and fun, and at the same time grungy and dirty and filthy, and it just exudes cool. It's a great track.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I actually did like the sampling on this. The instruments all sounded really good. I mean, I do think the horns sound a little funny, but not in a way that's really off-putting.
I think they sound the best on this track. Like, they're around on other songs, and they're a little ear-piercing. Like, if you listen to, like, when you're going from the subway, in between the subway to when you fight Katana or Sodom or whatever you want to call them, depending on which version you play, the censored or uncensored version, that track is very ear-stabbing. It's kind of ear-piercing.
Yeah.
It's very shrill. So I get, like, why people don't like certain tracks of this soundtrack.
Yeah, I wouldn't say the horns were ear-piercing or anything in this one.
No.
Overall, like, I like what they did with the drums. I like the sound of the drums.
Yeah.
I liked the...
Those toms.
Yes.
Sound phenomenal. It's just...
Yeah.
Really, really well done instrumentation on the toms and the drums and the bass and the horns and
the whole thing all together, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. You get where I'm coming from.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. I can see why you like this track so much. I mean, it's a lot of fun.
I have a deep nostalgia for Final Fight on the Super NES, so it's one of the first games I played on the Super Nintendo other than Super Mario World and Ultraman. So, yeah, this was one of the first. So anyways, all of the composers that we mentioned, we've talked about on previous episodes. You know, Harumi Fujita and Yasuaki Fujita, we talked about very heavily on our Disney Capcom episode. Manami Matsume worked on things like Mega Man, Mighty No. 9, Batman Return of the Joker on the Game Boy, Trip World in '92, so she kind of bounced back and forth between Capcom and Sunsoft for that. Yoshihiro Sakaguchi was mostly credited for all Capcom type games, did a lot of sound programming on stuff like Legendary Wings, Forgotten Worlds, Disney's DuckTales, UN Squadron 91 they did sound programming on. You know, just kind of bouncing around. They did sound programming on Breath of Fire in 93. Their last game they were credited for was Final Fight Double Impact in 2010. Again, probably just the original that is referencing. Yoko Shimomura needs no introduction. I'm just going to say Kingdom Hearts, Paper Mario, and all the Mario RPG stuff. Street Fighter II, The World Warrior in 91. And her last game was Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition in 2018. Junko Tamiya, longtime Capcom person. She composed on Gunsmoke in 1988, Strider in 89, Sweet Home in 89, did music on that. Street Fighter 2010, The Final Fight, was the music director on that. Codename Viper in 1990. Her last game, again, Final Fight Double Impact, which she was credited on, mostly for the original. And then Hiromitsu Takaoka, mostly Final Fight in 89 and 90. Cheeky Cheeky Boys in 1990 and 1941 Counterattack, and again Double Impact Final Fight in 2010. And then let's talk about the arranger real quick. Toshio Kajino worked on a ton of Capcom stuff, starting with Final Fight in 1990. I'm going to jump around quite a bit. Saturday Night Slam Masters in 93. Cadillacs and Dinosaurs in 93. They did sound design on all the like Marvel games, like Marvel Superheroes in 95, Alien vs. Predator in 94, the beat 'em up that we briefly talked about a little bit. Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo Revival in 2001, Mega Man X5 they did sound effects on, Mega Man Extreme they did the sound on in 2000, Dino Stalker, which was like a Dino Crisis offshoot. And then their last game that they were credited for was I Want to Be the Boshi in 2010, mostly just referencing other games. Yeah. Right. So that's it. That's my Final Fight spiel.
All right.
Let's move on from one Capcom game to another Capcom game. What do you got for us?
So we have a game that you just mentioned, actually. Cadillacs and Dinosaurs.
Woohoo!
Came out in the arcade in 1993. The track we're going to hear is The Four Heroes, also known as Stage 1-1. And this is composed by Isao Abe, Shun Nishigaki, and Ryo Mizutsuki. Welcome back. That was Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, which came out in the arcade in 1993. The track was called The Four Heroes, also known as Stage 1-1, and it was composed by Isao Abe, Shun Nishigaki, and Ryo Mizutsuki.
You know what's the worst part about this song? That it plays at the very beginning of Stage 1, and it plays just for a very small portion of Stage 1. You're only on the rooftop when you first start off for a very short amount of time. So just as like you're really rocking out on this song, it ends and it goes into the next track, and you're just like, oh, but that was a good song.
Yeah,
but why?
It is a really good song.
It is.
The overdriven guitars are really cool. It reminds me of. I don't think. It's Capcom, but I don't think it sounds exactly like a Mega Man X guitar. But it's very similar, and that's probably because it's a different sound chip. This is the arcade, it's not the SNES.
Yeah, I mean the standard Capcom CPS
yeah.
stuff. But one of the reasons why it sounds that way is because of Isao Abe,
yes.
who worked on, some of the Marvel games.
X-Men: Children of the Atom, Street Fighter II Champion Edition and Turbo, Dungeons and Dragons: Tower of Doom is a hack and slash that I am familiar with. I used to play a lot at the local arcade. Beautiful Joe 2 in 2004.
Pocket Fighter in 98 did music composition and arrangement. Star Gladiator, which was a really fun fighting game.
Yep. Spawn in the Demon's Hand in 2000. Yeah. Well, we're here. I'll go through the through the others. Shun Nishigaki, Captain Commando 1991, Street Fighter II 1993. Again, X-Men: Children of the Atom in 1994. Eco Fighters also in 1994. Mega Man 2: The Power Fighters in 1996. Those were fun games.
Yeah,
the Power Fighter games. Resident Evil 2 in 1998 did music composition, and Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo HD Remix in 2008.
Yes.
And then we have Ryo Mizutsuki, who just has 3 credits: Saturday Night Slam Masters in 1993, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs in 1993, and Harmonia in 2016.
This song is such a headbanger.
Yes,
like
it is.
It's just, I love the overdriven guitar with that main riff. Down, 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 down. And then once that lead line kind of breaks and you get into that chug, that dun 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 dun. And I love the background chug to that, like
yes. Like the rhythm guitar and bass.
Oh, it's so good. This is one of my favorite Capcom beat 'em ups. There's a few games that I want in arcade format, and this is like number one.
Oh yeah.
Like I would kill to get a Cadillacs and Dinosaurs cabinet, like a legit Cadillacs and Dinosaurs cabinet.
So you want this more than you want RoboCop?
Yes,
oh, wow.
Absolutely. If I could get this as an actual legit arcade cabinet, this would be the number one choice by far. Nice. Yeah, I've been wanting it for like ever. I even want to like just buy the marquee just to like throw up on my wall and just stare at and be like, someday. We played this one over the weekend. We had a lot of fun playing it.
We almost beat it.
We almost beat it, but like, I don't know, the emulator like really kind of screwed up. But I legit hacked my Wii that I used to own and then gave it to my father-in-law back when my wife was still living with her dad. And then years later, I was like, is anybody using this Wii? And she's like, no. And I was like, I'm going to take this back. And I ended up hacking it. And there's only one thing that I did, and I put Cadillacs and Dinosaurs on the Wii using emulators. And so it's like the one legit way that I have to play Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. I mean, other than like on, my laptop, but that's boring. But yeah, phenomenal game based on the Xenozoic Tales Cadillacs and Dinosaurs franchise. We did a whole episode on this game on Pixel Tunes Radio.
Yep.
So go check that out if you're curious. But phenomenal game, phenomenal music, and I really, really wish that they would port this one somewhere. So in the game, you can play as 4 different characters. You can play as Jack, who's like the main character who has good ability. Hannah Dundee, who is the female kind of professional explorer or whatever, diplomat. The third character you could play as is the friend of Jack, who's also an engineer. His name is Mustafa Cairo. He's known for having the flying kicks.
Yes.
And then the mysterious Meso Brodovich, who's just this big hulking dude.
Yeah.
He's like the muscle of the group.
Yeah, the power type.
Yeah. And so the 4 of them are going up against these poachers called the Black Marketeers. And later on, you end up encountering these more like human dinosaur-ish type characters.
Oh, yeah, the hybrid type.
Yeah,
things.
the hybrid like dinosaurs that end up looking like Blanca, like some of them.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a really cool game. I think that if they were to put this out on consoles back in the day, like, they would have really need to not only censor it, especially on the Super NES, they would have need to significantly cut some of the sprite work, because there's these characters that you fight later on that have like these crazy boomerang attacks.
Oh,
where
yeah.
they're throwing boomerangs, like multiple boomerangs all over the screen. And on top of that, their sprites are doing like that cool shadow box thing where like the shadows are like following, you know what I mean? Where the character is moving at a really fast pace to it. And they make it seem like, the sprite is like echoing his movement. And they have like 3 of those guys doing that like all over the screen, so it's crazy. So they would need to significantly cut this game down if they were going to put this out on like Super NES.
Yeah, yeah. But they don't have to do that if they put it out on PlayStation 4.
Yes, please do that, Capcom, if you're listening, which you're not. All right, so let's move into my next track, which is from a really underrated beat-em-up. It's called Phantom Breaker Battlegrounds Overdrive. Came out on the Xbox 360, the PC, the PS4, the PlayStation Vita, and the Switch in between the years of 2015 and 2018. The track is called Stage 0 Akihabara, and this is the FM Synth downloadable content version, which not a lot of people get to hear, and it's by Takeshi Abo. Welcome back to XVGM Radio. That was Phantom Breaker Battlegrounds Overdrive on the Xbox 360, PlayStation 4, PC, PlayStation Vita, and Nintendo Switch. Came out between the years of 2015 and 2018. That was Stage 0, Akihabara, the FM Synth downloadable content version, and that was by Takeshi Abo. What'd you think?
So, I mean, I heard this one when we played it over the weekend,
Yes.
and I wasn't paying as much attention to it because it hadn't occurred to me that you kept having me play Stage 0 because that's the track we're going to be playing in the episode.
Yes,
but
there's a method to my madness.
Yeah. But listening to it, without having the distraction of the game going on, it's a really solid track. I particularly like the breakdown at the end, where it just the track sort of starts to break down and it slows down a little bit.
Oh, like the ba-da-da-da.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I dig that. I love that main melody. That da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's just so uplifting and just great harmonies, great melodies, and I absolutely love the bass line. The whole track is great.
Bass is really solid. I thought the melody was really bright. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, just to explain a little bit about why I picked the FM Synth version. So, the regular version's kind of like a souped up, mega improved wavetable version. It's kind of like NES style music, but they put electronic drums behind it, not the
white noise.
Yeah, not like the wave.
Yeah.
So it's not like traditional NES music, but most of the main melodies and harmonies and everything are all based on wavetable NES style music, or maybe a little bit of Master System thrown in there. This soundtrack for the DLC only was released, I believe, on the limited run physical version. I believe there's a version of the soundtrack you can get where it's like the wavetable stuff, but I was lucky enough to pick up the collector's edition of the game fairly recently, the Phantom Breakers Overdrive, Battlegrounds Overdrive on the PS4. And the special edition comes with the soundtrack, and that soundtrack version has with it the FM Synth versions of the tracks. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. It actually, I don't think it has the regular versions. It just, I think, has
the FM Synth versions?
the FM Synth versions, which is weird. But gameplay-wise, this is a fun little beat-em-up, which kind of takes inspiration from games like Scott Pilgrim.
Yes.
But there's so much stuff going on. Like when you attack enemies... Bad guys just explode with coins and jewels and
everywhere.
Yeah, food and all this stuff that you can pick up, and you could use that after you pick it up. The more items you pick up, the higher you'll level up, and the more you can advance your character, give them additional moves and bonus moves and power them up. And you're going to need to replay levels over and over again because, very similar to Scott Pilgrim, the game has kind of wall blocks where you'll get to a specific enemy, like a final boss, and they will just kick your butt, just destroy you, and you have to go back and play some of the older levels just to level up your character. So if you like Scott Pilgrim, you'll love this game.
There's a few things that I enjoyed in this game over the Scott Pilgrim game, because I really did enjoy Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, me too.
But with that game, it's 2D sprites on 3D level, and a lot of beat 'em ups where it's a 3D level, you can move wherever you want.
Yeah.
But there are certain things that sort of require you to be lined up, which can sometimes be a pain in the butt.
Yep.
But with this game, I guess there's 2 planes, they called them.
Yeah,
so
it's similar to Guardian Heroes.
Yeah. So you jump back and forth between those, and whatever plane you're on is where you're fighting things. So you don't have to worry about, am I lined up or whatever. You just, wreck stuff.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And that's cool because you can bounce back and forth between the planes. And I would say that some of the characters play different than others. Most of the main characters that you get in the game, they all kind of play the same.
Yeah.
They're all pretty fast, pretty speedy. It's a fully female cast of chibi style anime. And, super cutesy, but, also very feminine looking. And you're going through, with different weapons. One character is a maid, and she has, a giant battle axe. And you've got another character with a giant sword. And, you're going through and you're beating up all these bad guys. Some of them look really goofy, like otaku nerds or whatever. And then there's some other ones that are just, big, beefy, bad guys or whatever. So there's not too much variety when it comes to the bad guys, but there's tons of bad guys on the screen at all times, so you're just constantly enjoying beating the stuffing out of everything.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, fun game. This game did fairly well for them for the most part, so hopefully they come out with a sequel in the future. Takeshi Abo was the composer on this one. Started off with Might and Magic, Clouds of Xene in 1993, where they did music. Also did a musical arrangement on Legend of Carandia, both the first game in 93, Hand of Fate in 95, and later on did games like Summon Night Grand Thieves, Horobi no Tsurugi to Yakusoku no Kishi, and that's on the PlayStation 2. Steins Gate Zero in 2015. Corpse Blood Party Drive in 2015. They did sound effects. Their latest game is in 2016, which is Mega Dimension Neptunia 7. And they did that as part of Mages Incorporated.
Yeah. Interesting. Nice.
Yeah. All right, so what do you got for us for our next track?
So, assuming my last track of the night, we're going to hear from Beautiful Joe, which came out in the GameCube in 2003. The track is called Blue the Justice, also known as Captain Blue's Music, and is composed by Masakazu Sugimori and Masami Ueda. Welcome back to my final track of the night. That was Beautiful Joe on the GameCube. It came out in 2003. The track is called Blue the Justice. It's also known as Captain Blue's music. This was composed by Masakazu Sugimori and Masami Ueda.
I really enjoyed this game when it came out in 2003. I remember I picked it up when it came out.
Yeah.
I still have the same copy that I've always had. And it's just a really different beat 'em up.
Yeah, I noticed. I had never played it until recently. I knew of the game. I knew it was a beat 'em up. I knew it was weird anime Sentai related. And I had a friend who was big into it, and I'd watched them play at some point, but I didn't really have any context or anything because I never saw the beginning.
Right.
So starting from the beginning, it was...
Makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, it makes more sense. It's a pretty solid intro. But it was more fun than I remember watching, I guess. It just seemed sort of like your average 2D beat-em-up platformer when I was watching a friend play, and actually playing it the other night. There's obviously a lot more to it.
Oh, yeah. No, there is. I mean, so the whole game story is basically you're playing as this character named Joe, and he's kind of like this big movie nerd, kind of like a, geek movie dude. And he's got this girlfriend named Sylvia who really just wants to make out with him during this movie. And they're watching a Captain Blue movie, and Captain Blue is like a, kind of like an aging Super Sentai guy. And he's fighting this big robot, and what ends up happening is Sylvia gets kidnapped, and so Blue ends up grabbing Joe out of the seat, and then he brings him into the movie world, and then you become part of the movie world, and then you end up getting your powers after you defeat Captain Blue in battle. So that's how you get your kind of like Super Sentai powers, where you can speed things up, you could slow time down. So it's a really well-made game, again developed by Clover, published by Capcom. Yep. But I never really paid attention to the music in this game until you picked this track, and I started listening to this one. It's got a real groove to it,
Yeah. This one in particular, it starts out almost old school. It just doesn't really sound 8-bit, but it sounds really crunchy in the first few seconds, and then it dives into this rock track,
almost like 32-bit era. With that
It kind of reminds me of some of the stuff we had on the PlayStation episode and stuff like that. Yeah, it came out in the GameCube, which is what GameCube, Xbox, and PS2 era.
Right,
so we're looking at
it's Generation 6, I think.
Yeah,
or 5.
That's the other thing is I don't remember the generational numbers, but it's that part of that generation, and the music in the game sort of harkens back to the PS1 era, the N64 era, and even a little bit to the SNES,
Sega Saturn,
yep.
Like that whole era. Yeah. No, I think that the music is good. I think the track was good, but it doesn't really change too much throughout the track.
No.
So if you've heard the first minute, you've kind of heard the whole thing. It's just do 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 do. It's a bit repetitive, but I don't think it's a negative thing. I just think that it stays true to what it is.
Yeah. I mean, it fits really well for background music.
Yeah,
and I feel like it doesn't fall so much in the background that it just becomes white noise type of background music.
Yeah.
But the repetitiveness of it and whatnot, it sort of helps to focus on a lot of that old school video game music. It was repetitive in such a way that you kind of focus on the game.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm willing to have a different opinion on that. This type of music to me does kind of blend into the background. It's not white noise, but I would say that listening to this, it doesn't make me seek out the soundtrack. You know what I mean? It's not all about the harmonies and melodies. It's more about the groove. And I can respect that. It's fine. I don't have any issues with it. But I do think that a track like this, it's better when you're playing the game instead of outside of the gaming experience. Maybe that's just me, but...
How dare you? No. I mean, I can see where you're coming from on that. It does have some of those qualities that you might just sort of not ignore it, but like you said,
it's more
it sort of blends in.
Blends in, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we have Masakazu Sugimori. Relatively short resume here. We start in 2001 with Gyakuten Saiban.
Phoenix, right?
Yes. The first entry in the series. Moving on to Beautiful Joe in 2003, and then Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney in 2005. That's when they brought it to the DS.
Yep.
And then Vanquish in 2010, and then finally in 2010, Ghost Trick Phantom Detective.
Ah, yes.
And then Masami Ueda started out in Resident Evil in 1996, doing composition and arrangement. looks like the first few Resident Evils, Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3, they did music composition on all of those. Devil May Cry in 2001, Beautiful Joe 1 and 2 in 2003 and 2004, Okami in 2006.
Working a lot with like
Clover.
Hideki Kamiya and Clover, yep.
Bayonetta in 2009,
Yep.
Bayonetta 2 in 2014, and Nier Automata in 2017.
And
Lead
also
music implementation.
Transformers Devastation,
yes.
which we talked about on Justin's
And-
picks.
yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. So pretty much became a part of Platinum Games.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and move into our final track, which is my pick. This is Metamorphic Force. This is the arcade-only game. It came out in 1993. This track is Stage 3 Frozen Land, and it's by Mutsuhiko Izumi and Mariko Igawa. right, you are back on XVGM Radio, and that was our final track of the beat 'em up extravaganza. Metamorphic Force was the game. It came out only in arcades, unfortunately, in 1993. The track was Stage 3, Frozen Land, and it's by Mutsuhiko Izumi and Mariko Igawa. If I was to own a second arcade game,
It would be this.
it would be this.
Wow. You put two things before RoboCop.
Yeah, that's true. I love this soundtrack. Oh my goodness. Fantastic stuff. All like heavy metal fused with some jazz fusion, and just this track in particular, very Castlevania-ish with that intro, that very Baroque era. And then when those guitars come in, they're so heavy and thick sounding.
Very chuggy, yeah.
And then you get that amazing sample, that guitar sample, that wow, the guitar pull with the whammy bar. Oh, so good. And then another really standout part for me was that flute solo.
Yes,
Sounded like a real flute. Like, instrumentation on this, again, phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, no, the flute part was something that I was going to highlight as well. Yeah, I thought it was really, really cool. Like, I like the sound of it. I liked what they did with it. I really enjoyed the addition of that flute in this track.
I know Ian Anderson's not dead, but it sounds like they took the ghost or spirit of Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull and just like ripped it from its core and then like threw it in this game.
Maybe.
Like fused every single sound chip for this board with a little bit of Ian Anderson's soul.
Yeah, I feel like with the Spike Out track, you melted my brain, and with this track, you melted my face.
Yeah. Originally, I had picked a different track to play from this, which was a track that is not only inspired, but directly ripped off of a jazz fusion band called Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Oh, yeah.
It's the Final Boss Part 1 theme, and it's the track Fire. And it's straight up, like, that song is ripped right from the Mahavishnu Orchestra track. I mean, like, right from it. Like, it's neck and neck. Even the solo, like, everything. So, really cool that they kind of saw influence from that, and they were like, yeah, we're going to toss this in the game.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Yeah. So, this game, you are trying to face off against somebody named Death Shadow, or better known as the Evil One. Ooh.
The Evil One.
And the Greek goddess Athena summons these 4 people to take on these anthropomorphic guardian style.
Like avatars or something.
Yeah. So you've got this one dude named Ivan. He's like a big wrestler guy, big beard, like lumberjack. He fights with a log, and he turns into a bear.
Yep.
Then you've got Max, who's a boxer, kind of like fighter, and he turns into a panther. So he's like a were-panther. They're all like were versions of each other. It's like a were-bear for Ivan, a were-panther for Max. Claude, who's like a French swordsman kind of style, uses like a rapier, kind of like Raphael from Soul Calibur.
Yep.
He turns into a white werewolf. And then Bond, who's a martial artist, he turns into like a minotaur. Yeah. So gameplay feels very similar to X-Men and Mystic Warriors because they run on the same hardware.
Right.
As those games. So, in particular, Mystic Warriors. But this was one of the last beat-em-ups that came out in arcades from Konami. This and Violent Storm were the 2 last ones.
Oh.
We did episodes on both of those games on Pixel Tunes Radio. So, if you want to hear more of this soundtrack, definitely check out Metamorphic Force, that episode. So what did you think of this game when you played through it?
So this one was a lot of fun, actually. It was...
You didn't give
fairly
up?
difficult. No, I kept throwing fake quarters in and just continuing with different characters, cycling through them. I think I started out as Ivan. I really liked his werebear form, but I think in the end, my favorite character ended up being Bon, the Minotaur. They all play somewhat similarly.
Yeah.
But I just liked his playstyle the most. It was really neat. Like, I liked the way that you build up until you transform into your spirit animal or whatever.
It's kind of like Altered Beast a little bit.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it reminds me a little bit of Altered Beast.
It's a shame that this game is basically going to be stuck in arcades because Konami's not really paying attention to anybody who has any interest in arcade games nowadays.
Hey, maybe they'll make a pachinko game out of it.
Yeah, maybe. Ugh, God. There's a company called Hamster, and they do a lot of like arcade conversions for games that like never came out.
Yeah.
They did Haunted Castle, for example, which only had a PS2 re-release in Japan. What they did was they re-released it on the PS4. So here's hoping that Hamster gets with Konami and says, hey, Metamorphic Force, let's do it. Put it on PS4, because this game would be a lot of fun to play.
Oh, yeah.
Especially online. I mean, if you could play stuff like Phantom Breaker,
Yeah, right.
Battlegrounds online, which you can.
This would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, it's a little bit Golden Axe meets like Altered Beast for this one, a little bit, with just like amazing music. So, all right, now we come to the end of the show, which means we have to pick our favorite track. Justin.
So I think I'm going to go with the Alien vs. Predator City track.
Really?
This time around. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of really good stuff on here, but partly for the nostalgia of the game and the song, but also partly for just where that song went. And like I'm really digging the sound font that was used and just the overall feel of that song tonight.
Yeah. I knew you'd think that I would pick like Metamorphic Force, or you would think that I would pick Final Fight. But I'm going to go with Spike Out.
Oh, yeah.
I love that track. It's so good.
That makes sense. Based on our conversation earlier, that makes a lot of sense.
You know what's crazy about it is I was doing research for the game, and when I heard the soundtrack, I was blown away at just this one song. I didn't even listen to the rest of the soundtrack initially. I was like, nope, I'm picking this track. Like, this is phenomenal. So I just threw it up there. So that's my pick, Spike Out Battle Street.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Any game that makes me want to buy a system is probably going to have a really good soundtrack. So we want to thank, first off, our patron who requested the TMNT track, which is Kung Fu Carlito. So thank you so much for picking that track, and thank you for being a Patreon subscriber. You can be a patron of the podcast by going to patreon.com/XVGM Radio. And sign up. Even $1 gets you really cool stuff like our live shows, for example, which
once a month.
Yeah, which we do once a month. We just recently did our first, so that is backlogged. You can listen to it on the Patreon website. So
yeah, that's another thing. If you become a patron, the live shows that you've missed are available on the site, so you instantly get access to those if you are interested to see what they're all about, and then want to actually tune in.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to thank all of our patrons that did sign up.
Starting with Alex Messenger, Scott McElhone, Cam Worma, Chris Murray, Kung Fu Carlito, that we just mentioned, Chris Myers, Peter Panda, The Autistic Gamer 89, and Mixmaster. Thank you all for supporting our show and helping us do the things we do.
That's right. Much appreciated. So you can check us out at xvgmradio.com to listen to all of our episodes and also look at stuff about like our guests that we've had on. We've got little blurbs up there about them. And also, if you are interested in listening to episodes that do feature guests, you can go right there and it says all the episodes that have guests featured on them. So it's pretty cool. Our Twitter and our Instagram, which are both handles at XVGM Radio. Follow us on there. You can also check us out on our Discord. There's a link up at the top left-hand side. It looks like a little link, but it's actually... Huge shout out to my pal Jay Dubious. He's part of Dubious Gaming. He did the voiceover for the punk character in the commercial on this episode. Please check out his channel. You can see the link down below in the description. So, what are we doing next episode, Justin?
Episode 19, we are going into new territory, so to speak.
Yeah.
It is no nostalgia classics.
Yeah.
We are going to be listening to tracks from games that neither of us has either played or really had much interaction with, but that are considered classics.
Well, to clarify, I picked 5 games that I've never played, and you picked 5 games that you've never played. So, but yeah, we're going to be talking about games that we've both never played individually and kind of sharing how little experience we have with these games, maybe talk a little bit about them on a very basic level, but we're going to be talking about why we never got into these games or why we never picked these games up or, you know, anything like that. So it's going to be kind of cool, almost like a blind listen kind of thing a little bit.
Yeah.
Just because I know some of these soundtracks I've never heard.
Yeah.
So it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like the opposite of what we normally do. We talk about games, and then we talk about, you know, what we know about them, our experiences with them, and these are going to be games that we don't really have experience with, so it's going to be a slightly different conversation.
Yeah, no, it'll be cool. All right, so signing off from XVGM Radio, this is Mike.
And Justin.
Thanks, guys, and take care. What constitutes a beat up? So what?
I'll tell you what constitutes a beat up.
A beat up. What constitutes a beat up? So what constitutes a beat up?